Hello boys, welcome back to another session of video tutorials, and this session is meant for class 11th biology students, and this is for 7th December 2020. And as all of us know, we are into the revision mode. We are revising the entire syllabus after having completed the portion, and as part of it we are revising all important chapter number 14, respiration in plants. We have been talking about respiration in animals. Now it's a turn that respiration respiration too will take place in plants too. So respiration is an energy releasing. Why energy releasing? It releases ATPs. How many we have been talking? One glucose molecule getting oxidized forms 36 ATP molecules. We said recently only we discussed this. So only we say it is energy releasing chemical process, and it is enzymatically controlled. So enzymes control this reaction. And third, it's a catabolic process. What is catabolism? Process of breaking bigger molecules into smaller molecules. So glucose is broken down into CO2 and H2O, and this happens, glucose will be broken only when oxygen is present. So it's an aerobic respiration. So this involves stepwise oxidative breakdown of food substances inside living cells. So whatever we eat, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and other snacks, coffee, tea, all this go to our body inside and gets digested. At the end of it, the end product of digestion is glucose. And now glucose reaching via blood to each and every cell in our body gets oxygen again through thanks to breathing. So the oxygen gets inside, and the blood, same blood carries, the blood that carried glucose carries oxygen also to each and every cell. So every cell, maybe we have got millions of cells, and all the cells will get this glucose and oxygen. And once these two are available in the cell, this reaction takes place. Thus every cell becomes energized. When cell becomes energized, tissue becomes energized, and tissue becomes energized, organ becomes, and organism totally becomes energized. So living organisms require energy for all the activities like absorption, movement, reproduction, or even breathing. Whatever that we perform, we do, we require energy. And from where we are getting this energy? Through this respiration. So energy is required, and it is obtained from oxidation of food during respiration. So if someone asks you what is respiration, you can say oxidation of glucose or oxidation of food. And since it is taking place inside every cell, we can also call it as cellular respiration. So it is the mechanism of breaking down of food materials within the cell to release energy for the synthesis of ATP. So the food that we eat will be broken down stepwise, and finally glucose will be formed, and glucose also stepwise will be broken, and release of ATP takes place. So breaking down of complex molecules take place to produce energy in cytoplasm and of course mitochondria. That's why we call them as powerhouses of the cell. And the ATP is called energy currency, just like Indian currency rupee. Like that, energy currency is ATP. Breaking down of carbon-carbon bond of complex compounds through oxidation within the cells leading to release of energy is called respiration. The compounds that get oxidized are called respiratory substrates. Energy released during oxidation is not used directly, but utilized in the synthesis of ATP, which is broken down when energy is required. Therefore, ATP is called energy currency of cells. Just now I said. The process of respiration requires oxygen. Of course, oxygen is a must. In plants, oxygen is taken in by stomata, lenticels and root hairs. What about in animals? Lungs, and in different organisms we have got different respiratory organs. Plants can get along without respiratory organs because we have respiratory organs, like human beings have got lungs. But as plants, there is no need for a specific respiratory organs. What is the reason? 4 reasons. Each plant part takes care of its own gas exchange needs. So there is continuous exchange of gases through the surfaces. Plants do not present great demands for gas exchange. Distance that gases must diffuse in large plants is not great. During photosynthesis, oxygen is released in leaves and diffused to other parts of leaves. So since oxygen is released during photosynthesis, it's easy for the distribution of oxygen within the plant. During process of respiration, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide and water is released along with energy molecules in the form of ATP. That's what we wrote the reaction. And we have got what is called RQ, Respiratory Quotient. It is the ratio of the volume of carbon dioxide produced to the volume of oxygen consumed in respiration over a period of time. So RQ is equal to 1 for carbohydrates and less than 1 for proteins and peptones. So basically, respiration is oxidation of glucose. And this takes place with the presence of oxygen, then we say aerobic respiration. In the absence of oxygen, it takes place, then we call it as anaerobic respiration. Sometimes it may be deficit oxygen also. So in aerobic respiration, the glucose that is formed will be broken in 3-stepped way. We said phased manner. Step number 1 is glycolysis. Step number 2 is Krebs cycle. Step number 3 is terminal oxidation. Electron chain will be there. So aerobic respiration is an enzymatically controlled release of energy in a stepwise catabolic process of complete oxidation of organic food into carbon dioxide and water, with oxygen acting as terminal oxidant. So what are the various steps that form glycolysis? As the name says, glyco means glucose, lysis breaking down. So this glycolysis will be starting with the glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound, ends with 3-carbon pyruvic acid. So the steps that are involved is, the first step is glucose, a 6-carbon compound, is converted to glucose 6-phosphate, and this happens with this spending of energy. ATP is converted to ADP plus inorganic phosphate. This is step number 1. Glucose 6-phosphate becomes fructose 6-phosphate. You know, glucose and fructose isomers, 6-carbon 6-carbon mirror images. Again ATPs are spent, ATP is becoming ADP, and then fructose 6-phosphate becomes fructose 1,6 biphosphate or diphosphate. Okay, all the 6 carbons, and then fructose 1,6 biphosphate is becoming triose phosphate or glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, which is a 3-carbon one. Here the triose phosphate reversible reaction, that is, triose phosphate can be dihydroxyacetone phosphate. That means it can be glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate or dihydroxyacetone phosphate. And this glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate now has become 3-carbon. So that means from 6-carbon it has become 3-carbon. Another one is, of course, another 3 carbons, dihydroxyacetone phosphate. And now this glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is becoming 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid or triose biphosphate. Again here the reverse of it. There ATPs are spent, here NAD plus is becoming NADH plus H plus. NADH is more powerful than ATP. And this 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid, which is a 3-carbon compound, is becoming 3-phosphoglyceric acid. Or triose biphosphate is becoming triose phosphate. Okay, there biphosphate, here it is phosphate. Now here again ADP is combining with inorganic phosphate available and forming ATP. So this is a plus reaction, this is a plus reaction as far as ATP formation is concerned. And whereas this is a minus and this is a minus, ATPs are spent. And 3-phosphoglyceric acid is becoming 2-phosphoglycerate or 2-phosphoglyceric acid. 2-phosphoglyceric acid eliminating water becomes phosphoenol pyruvate. Phosphoenol pyruvate, we say PEP. And the PEP, phosphoenol pyruvate, becomes pyruvic acid or pyruvate, which is 3-carbon. Again, there is a plus because ATPs are formed. So if you see here, 2 ATPs are spent there on top, 2 ATPs are formed at the down with NADH. So again the same process this dihydroxyacetone phosphate also will undergo. So overall, the breaking of glucose molecule into pyruvic acid or pyruvate is a profit for us in terms of energy. We'll discuss further. Now I want you to practice this glycolysis because normally it's